Well, hello everybody. I hope you're having a awesome day. We're having another wonderful webinar experience here today. Love this topic. Stop selling time and start selling value. It's an idea that we all need to embrace, whether you're an agency, a professional services, accountant, it doesn't matter. This is something that both Steve and myself are very passionate about and really excited to get rolling on this subject.
Thanks, Ignition, for having me. Really excited, as you mentioned, to jump into this topic. Stop selling time, start selling value. It's something I'm passionate about, having made the shift years ago on the agency side, and now I help other agencies do it. So we'll jump in. So quick little bit about me. Jenny asked, where's everybody from? I'm in New Jersey in the USA, East Coast time. But my experience, I've been on the agency side for about 25 years. I started super young, and so that's what's gotten me here so far. I owned my own agency. We were a branding and web agency. I grew that through an acquisition and then through some of the strategies that I help other agencies implement, including this pricing model, and eventually sold it after a decade. Now I help agency owners overcome their challenges and goals. I've coached nearly 100 agencies since I launched Outside Agency Outside, or the new service that Jenny just helped me launch through her naming services right here. So feel free to connect with me. You can get me on LinkedIn, Agency Coach is my URL there, or on Instagram, Agency Outside. And I have a podcast for agency owners called Agency Bites. This week will be episode 104. All right, so let's jump in. Again, this is a super exciting topic, and thank you, Ignition, for allowing me to share this content with your members and your audience. All right, so in my coaching ethos and how I like to approach things, I found over the years, and I kind of started to develop this when I had my own agency, that most challenges that an agency might face ties back to one or many of the 6 Ps. And maybe I need to trademark that, but these are some of the common agency owner challenges. So positioning, people, process, pipeline, pricing and profit, and personal balance, which is probably the hardest one to really achieve. And that ties back to I'm working a million hours. When I remember or am able to pay myself, why am I making so little, but my team members and employees are getting paid? So any or all of these tie back to the most common challenges that I've seen in an agency. But today, the two that we're going to talk about the most are positioning and pricing and profit. Those two really impact one another the most. But what's really beautiful is when the levers are pulled on either of those two, they impact the other areas of your business really well. They start to reveal areas that could be tightened up or tweaked or improved, but also they allow you to increase the value of these other areas of your business. And again, these are not all of the challenges that an agency might face, but most, if not all, do tie back to these 6. So your pricing affects the rest of your organization, obviously. People like raises. They like to be acknowledged for the work they do. They like finding the right solution and building success for their clients and for your organization. And over time, people prefer to build strategic partnerships versus being order takers, which we're going to get into. So the common billing model, time for money, it's pretty straightforward. And we'll talk about how this works and why most service-based businesses start here. We're basically trading our time for money. It's how it all starts. It's how it started for me as a freelancer. Most creative entrepreneurs or service-based entrepreneurs are accidental entrepreneurs. And so we start trading time for money. Somebody says, can you do a thing, whether it's plant a tree, paint a house, or do a logo? And we say yes. And they ask us, how long is that going to take? And that's the mindset that we get started with. How long is it going to take? And we rarely get away from that mindset. So we make up a time because maybe we've done it once or twice. We're not really sure how long it's going to take. And we say, I know it's going to take 10 hours. And then we also assign a random hourly rate to that. I don't know, maybe it's going to $100 an hour is my rate. We don't typically at this stage in our business do true planning or budgeting to know what our actual hourly rate should be. So for the sake of this math problem, because I went to art school, not math school, we're going to use round numbers. So we'll say $100 an hour is my hourly rate. That's typically how most of these businesses start. And then it's a gut check from there out. So let's say I get hired to design this logo. I say it's going to take me 12 hours. So your budget is $1,200. Maybe I do 2 invoices, one to get started for half price, half of the value, and the second one at the end when we're all done. What happens is for $1,200, it's a low budget ticket. The person who's hired us or hired me in this case as a freelancer or a small agency checks in with me just about every 45 minutes to see how it's going, because the $1,200 they've committed is just about all the money that they could muster up and save for this budget, for this project. And keep in mind, this is the most important thing to them. It's their unique, brilliant, one-of-a-kind idea that they're looking to launch. They probably even asked you to sign an NDA because they think it's such a special project that they're launching. So small budgets typically equal large pains in the you-know-what. So fast forward, you've designed this amazing logo and you hand it off, and now you're on to the next one. Well, in order to keep a business going like this, you can't just do one and be done. So let's do some more math. Let's build out over time and show what the limitations of this model of billing are. Again, I like to stick to round numbers because I went to art school, not math school. Let's say it's an 8-hour day. I'm making $100 an hour. Wow, that sounds like a lot of money, $800 a day. And there's probably maybe even more accountants and bookkeepers on here that are like, this is simple math. So I'm keeping it super simple. $800 a day, $4,000 a week, 16,000-ish a month. Not too bad. That's $200,000 a year. That's far above, at least here in USA, the median income by 6x. You're not doing too bad there. However, there's limitations to it, and that's not accurate math anyway. The reason it's not accurate math is because A, nobody can or wants to work 100% of their life, and B, that's not taking into account sick days, vacations, holidays, which it usually accounts to about 20 to 22 days per year. Most of those days, if you're the boss, you're still paying the employee even though they're not generating revenue for you. So what that math really comes down to is, from a billability standpoint, maybe I'm at about 75%, which from a production employee standpoint is about average. It's pretty close to good. So maybe they're earning me $156,000 a year as an employee, being billed out at 75% of the time, and I'm still paying them their vacation days. Maybe I give them off for their birthday or national holidays, things like that. After all those days off, they're only able to make $140,000 at $100 an hour billable for my company. Again, you're thinking, hey, that's not too bad, but actually that's kind of garbage, because if they cost me $65 an hour, the estimated cost after taxes, benefits, paying them for days off, what else taxes, benefits, etc., they're costing me about $135,000 per year. And again, these are US dollar maths, but you can extrapolate it out to the UK, or I saw somebody from Italy. So I'm making $5,000 a year off of one employee. That doesn't even cover my tech stack for the year. So not great math. And at this point, I'm essentially a not-for-profit. Not a bad thing to be, but that's not what I'm in business to be. So let's talk about the right way to math this out. I do have a free download on my resources page on my website that helps people plan these budgets and understand what their costs are so they know what their hourly rate should be. In the shift to value-based pricing, there's still a need to know of what your budgets are. So we're not saying we don't have to do budgeting anymore. Your employees, in a typical rule of thumb in a service-based business, should earn you anywhere from 2 to 3 times what their costs are. So what you're paying them, plus sick days, plus vacation days, plus holidays, plus taxes and insurance, add that all together. In an ideal world, you're billing them out at 2 to 3 times what that total cost is. And that download that I referred to on my resources page helps you calculate all that. So in this model, again, at $65 an hour cost, not billing, cost, the person is costing me $135,000 per year. I want to make between $270,000 and $405,000 per year on that person. So if I keep billing them hourly, again, I'm just showing you how limited this mindset is. I need to bill them out between 2,700 and 4,050 hours per year. There is 2,080 workable hours in a year, and that's with a 2-week vacation. And so these numbers just don't math out. And there's no way to build a super profitable business on this model. So it's flawed. It doesn't work. How do we make it work? The first thing we need to do is look at positioning. The reason why we need to look at positioning is because how my business is seen in the marketplace and through the eyes of the people that would hire me impacts my pricing. And not just what I can charge, but how I'm able to charge them. So at the early stages of a service-based business, we're typically seen as order takers. And that's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is the strategist and the advisor role. These are two very different people or companies or perspectives to have. And along the way, there's any number of different incremental spots that, between those two ends of the spectrum. There's various stages on how we become experts, various points of time on when we are considered an expert, and to whom we're considered experts. On one end of the spectrum, we can demand more money, and the more we charge, typically the more we're trusted. So on the lower end of the spectrum is far less billable hours or billable rate, and on the higher end is a much greater billable rate. So also on the lower end of the spectrum, we're chasing clients. In the earlier and less tightly niched stages of our business, we're focusing so much more on the top of funnel leads and chasing clients and doing cold outreach and all of these tactics. Whereas on the other side of the spectrum, we're typically more sought after. We're sought after as specialists, and both in the services that we provide and in the industries that we provide them. So niching down, owning a few verticals, and owning the services that you provide in those verticals is vital in this pricing model. In general, it's vital in the strategic growth of a service-based business. So a great analogy is thinking about the difference between a cab driver, let's say in New York City or Vancouver, wherever you are, and a chauffeur. With a cab driver, the meter is running every minute. They're incentivized to take much longer. If there's traffic, they're not upset because the meter is always running. You're frustrated as the passenger because you want to get to your destination quicker. They're focused on the ride, not the service or the experience or the destination, and you pay for their time. The other side of the spectrum is the chauffeur driver. So it's flat fee for a premium experience. They pick you up, they open the door for you, they put your luggage in the bag, in the trunk, or the boot, wherever you're from. They're incentivized to get you there efficiently and focused on the destination and what that process looks like, and you pay for the overall outcome. And that's the difference of what we're talking about here. Positioning is everything, and it allows us to price for value and not for our time. So how do we start to price for the value? A few of the, long-term impacts of pricing for value. First is your sales cycles will be shorter because you're sought after and you're not chasing or convincing someone to work with you. So what might have taken 6, 12, 18, even 24 months to close a piece of business can happen much sooner because you're not necessarily selling as you are working together to come up with a solution. So that's vital. And that helps with your pipeline It also helps with your cash flow. Scoping your projects at this point, or your engagements, I should say, isn't about line items. It's not about features, and you'll hear me say that a few times because it's vital. But it's about the value of the results that you're providing to your clients and your partners. So you're not listing out line items of website functionality and things like that. Sure, you might need that at some point in your statement of work, but at the upfront, it's not relevant. Discovery is about the benefits and not the features. And so the features are the bells and whistles. They're not, they're nice to haves, but they're not really what's going to sell things and get things across the finish line. So the benefits are the results. And in your discovery process, you need to be able to ask the right questions that show that you are an advisor and not an order taker. So you want to understand their business as an advisor and understand almost on an intimate level of what's going on, what's in your roadmap, what's in your pipeline for your product or your service, how are your sales, what's your growth plan, things like that. So some of the really important questions that you can ask as in this advisory role are, what does success look like for you? And knowing that, you know what hitting it out of the ballpark means for them. Also remembering that at this point in your conversation with this potential client or partner, you know that they've got a boss that they've got to answer to. You know that they've got a review process probably every quarter in their company. Maybe you're talking to the owners or CEO and they've got shareholders. So for them, success often means, yes, increased sales or increased membership or looking good for my boss. Whatever that means for them, you need to understand what it is. What's the current problem that they're having costing them? That's vital in knowing how you can value it. So currently you've said that your problem is that you're not getting your widgets out of the country and into retail stores quick enough. So what is that costing you? Well, our delay is making us miss holiday rush seasons. And so that's costing us $1 million a year, or whatever that number is. That's their pain point. And understanding what the cost of their pain point is, again, helps you value what your solution is going to be worth to them. Question them on why now. Why is it so important that you solve this problem now as opposed to last year or next year? Maybe they've got an influx of budget because shareholders are breathing down somebody's neck. Maybe because their review is coming up and they want to solve this before their review. If they're an EOS operation, maybe this is one of their quarterly rocks that they're bringing you in to help them solve for. So why now is important because their time pressure is to your benefit on increased value. And then why me? This is a great one. I picked this up from somebody I'll reference at the end. Why me is great because it allows them to say out loud to you and to themselves to reinforce it, why they've sought you out, what they've seen you succeed at, who recommended them. Maybe they saw you speak or they saw you on an industry panel or at an industry event, but it allows them to say out loud why it is that they want to hire you, why they sought after you, and what's so great about you as the person that's going to provide their solution, person or company that's going to provide their solution. So these are great questions to start asking. Let's play through a scenario. I'm the client and I want to increase my sales by 25%. So you come back and you say, I heard your problem. The challenge is that you need to increase your sales by 25%. Our solution from Acme Co. or Agency Outside is going to take 6 months to design, implement, and we're going to train your team on it. And it's going to cost you $250,000. That's the way that you position proposals in this phase of pricing, as opposed to our solution for you to increase sales is going to take 400 hours over the course of 6 months. And at 400 hours, we're going to charge you $250,000. They're going to reverse engineer that and say, why is your hourly rate X? You don't even talk about an hourly rate at this point. The other thing that this opens the door for, which is a really great way to pitch work or propose solutions, is doing it in 3 different levels. So you can say, all right, your baseline is, you said that your budget is $50,000 to solve this problem. So for $50,000 in 3 months, we can do X, Y, and Z. But for $85,000 over 5 months, we can also increase membership engagement and put a system in place that will allow for membership conversion over the next X amount of time. And a third option on how you can work with us is for $120,000 over 6 months or whatever the time frame is, we're going to also add these other benefits. Again, these are not features, they're benefits. They're value add increases to the baseline of what they've asked for their problem to be solved. Think of this, but don't call it this. It's not the good, better, best model, but essentially it's the baseline, the next level, and then the third level. Blair Enns talks a lot about this in Win Without Pitching. It's a really strong way to present it because psychologically, if a consumer or B2B consumer sees three options, they're typically going for the middle one. So from a value standpoint, you want the middle one to typically be on the higher end of price, but on the slightly lower end of what the value delivery is, because it'll be far more profitable for you. I do know that Ignition has service-based templates that are aligned with this model of pricing that you can easily implement. So check that out in your Ignition dashboard. I think Jenny can tell you about that as well. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. Happy to answer them midstream as well. All right. How do we break into value-based pricing? So first thing you can do in your nurturing a lead process, you're having a conversation with somebody. You can even put this, let's say, on your website as we call a monkey's paw in the sales department. A monkey's paw is a throwback term to the shipping world, where in order to get those giant thick ropes up to the boat, they would throw a small ball with a thin line tied to it, and that thin line was tied to a thicker line, and then a thicker line and a thicker line. It's called the monkey's paw. So you throw the monkey's paw. Monkey's paw in this case is, let's start with something small. Selling something small and a value-based pricing means a brand audit, a website audit, an SEO audit, something that is adjacent to or the intro to the larger package service that you want to sell. So start with something small. We do a brand audit, it's $10,000. The deliverables are X, Y, and Z. This allows you to get to know the client and them to get to know you, so you know before you jump into the year-long $200,000 project, man, these people are really great to work with, or red light, we don't want to go beyond this audit. $10,000 is where we're stopping things. So it also gives the client the idea that you don't work on a clock, that you're a results-driven agency, and this is how you set the tone for that in this first engagement. From there, you go up to the larger idea of the bigger solution for their bigger challenge is the bigger plate. So again, you've taught them and trained them that this is how we operate. We don't deliver time reports. We are not running a clock, and instead we're building a process driving towards solution. So the benefits of value-based pricing. This is really essential to understand all that your agency or your service-based business can get out of switching to or starting to switch to value-based pricing. So the first is it exponentially increases your profit. And if you think back to how limiting that first scenario was, where in an hourly scenario, you were paying $65 an hour for somebody who was earning you $100 an hour in a very limited basis, there's a very low ceiling to what your profitability can be. Whereas in a value-based scenario, there is no ceiling to that. It's the perceived value from who you're selling to or who's buying from you. And so that $100 per hour I showed you could increase by 150% very easily by saying this is going to be $2,000 for the day versus $800 for the day. By needing to be efficient, in order to lower the amount of time it takes you to execute on a service, your efficiency equals more profitability. So one key way that profits increase is through just tightening up your systems and having fewer products and fewer services and streamlining your delivery of everything. So again, early on in the life cycle of a service-based business, we're typically delivering far more services than we should. We want to be all things to all people. Later on, as we mature in the life cycle of the business, we want to hone those into, we simply do branding and web for B2B software services, or even just we do branding for B2B SaaS products. Super tight niche, very tight delivery, and that delivery becomes very efficient. So the same is also true for how you produce proposals. And the quicker you get to deliver your proposal, the quicker you close your deals. I know, again, Ignition I think I had seen on LinkedIn, and Jenny showed me a new agency service agreement template. So by having things templatized in your proposal system, like Ignition has, allows you to just efficiently get those proposals out the door and close more on time. One of the biggest reasons why, and these are from agencies that I've worked with, why agencies don't win business is because of how long it takes them to deliver their proposals. So the quicker you can speed that up, the more business you win. Once you win that business, the more efficiently you execute and deliver results, the more profitable you are. Real quick sidebar on how we calculate profitability. Again, if this is accountants and bookkeepers, you already know this. Not to say that everybody else doesn't, but so focusing on effective hourly rate is one of the best ways to understand how your profitability works. And so again, it's literally total revenue divided by your total hours worked. So in the scenario I showed you earlier, I'm billing $800. I've worked 8 hours. My effective hourly rate is $100 an hour. That's not bad, but we know we can do better. So in this scenario, if I change my billing format from saying, I'm going to run a clock, we're going to do 8 hours, $800, client's happy to pay it, you're happy to earn it. But if I said my day rate is $2,000 a day, now my effective hourly rate is $250 an hour. It's 150% increase. And again, it's focused value. It's not reporting back on timesheets, but knowing my effective hourly rate allows me to understand my true profitability and seeing my profit, my gross profit, my net profit, my EBITDA increase. This is how you make that happen. Jumping back into the benefits, I'd rather see, so think about 5 hours to do a project for $500 versus however quickly you can do that same $500 project and how quickly you can make it happen is a better way to go about it. So if I can do it quicker, if I can do it in 1 hour or 2 hours, that effective hourly rate skyrockets. So you're motivated to find better, faster, more creative solutions. Clients stop tracking your time and focus on your results. So there's less focus on how long will this take. Sure, they want to know that you're going to hit their Q2 rock, or it's going to be done before the shareholders meeting, or we need to hit the website launch date. All those things are absolutely true. Milestones in the project, all that stuff happens, but we're not tracking time as far as, did you do 10 hours today or 8 hours today? And why did it take so long to do that one little thing? Instead, they're focusing on how can we make this more amazing? And they're not scrutinizing your invoices about why, this one little feature or this one little thing took X amount of hours to do. Again, we're not talking about features, we're talking about the benefits. So there's really no ability for them to scrutinize your timesheets to wonder, why did this feature take 10 hours to code? I could have used a WordPress plugin or something like that. Your shift from being a vendor to a problem solver and a trusted partner skyrockets the amount of trust that they have in you and allows you to continue to build your niche deeper, but also allows you to keep your clients longer, which who doesn't want to keep clients longer? Instead of focusing on finding new ones, it's far more efficient to keep clients longer. So as you build trust on the solutions that you provide, clients want to stick with you longer as opposed to being one and done as a task taker. Fixed fee or value-based projects provide more consistent cash flow. So one of the chief challenges of a growing agency, let alone a stable agency, is avoiding the hills and valleys of cash flow. So, wow, we were super busy over the summer. What are we going to do with all this cash? but winter is crickets. How am I going to make payroll next week? So knowing that I've got 6 fixed fee projects in the pipeline versus I need to run the clock on these people and see if I can charge hourly for them allows you to streamline and flatten them out somewhat. It's rare that you're going to always have a flat cash flow, or an increased cash flow, I should say, but it'll start to decrease the hills and valleys, which we all want. The other beautiful thing about this is nobody likes to have a drawn out accounts payable. So if you can decrease the 30, 60, 90, 120 days in some cases billables, and instead do milestone payments based on, this is a $12,000 project. It's going to take 2 months. We're going to charge you six grand and $6,000, or however you break in the milestones. It gives you a far better way to know what your billings are going to be, and you don't have to worry about waiting for accounts payable. It's also easier as a trusted partner for you to help your clients. So their problems are your problems. And as I said earlier, knowing their business and the ins and outs of the challenges that they face is essential in earning their trust and becoming a known expert and solution provider for them. And one of those things is they have budgets also, and knowing how they can best use their cash flow is a great way to help you be a trusted partner for them. So coming towards the wind down here, there's one debatable caveat that I feel really is important. And so people that do talk about value-based pricing, some are against it, some are for it. But I still believe in time tracking internally. It's not as vital in this model. You're not reporting it to clients to justify your billing, but here's why I think it's so important. So you need the data for your project and client-based profitability. So in order to understand your true effective hourly rate and your overall profitability, it's vital to know how much each project earns you and how much it costs you, as well as how much each client earns you and costs you. Over time, as the business grows, you're going to want to focus on how do we get rid of these less profitable clients. And the only way to really do that is to know where and why are we over-servicing, and how do we stop over-servicing. And one of the ways to do that is getting rid of smaller, bigger pain in the butt clients. So that's one way. Having the data for your project and client-based profitability is important. The other is the data for team usability and forecasting. Knowing what your team is doing on a regular basis, where they're spending their time, and how they're putting that time into, let's say it's 60% client usability and 15% internal team usability. Knowing that breakdown allows you to forecast out of, hey, by Q3, we're going to need another developer or designer or strategist because look how we're ramping up. As opposed to all your employees just saying, oh, we're so busy all the time. Well, having the real data to say you're busy, but are you productive and are you billing is totally different things. And then the third is using that data to use for a baseline of your value-based pricing. So thinking back to those 3 models of this is the initial starting point of what this project could be, and the solution is going to cost you $10,000. Well, if I know time and time again that $10,000 project is costing us $8,000 or $9,000, we're not very profitable. So the next time I present that solution for that same exact service, I'm going to bump it up to $15,000 or $20,000 because I know that the data says we're not always profitable in this situation. So these are 3 really important factors on why I believe service-based businesses should continue to time track, even though it's not essential from the client standpoint in this value-based pricing standpoint. So finally, I want to leave you with a handful of resources. These are 3 books and 3 podcasts specific to value-based pricing. The first 2 are books. They're probably 20, 25 years old, maybe longer. I don't know how old. Value-Based Pricing Fees by Alan Weiss, really great book. And then Implementing Value Pricing, A Radical Business Model for Professional Firms by Ronald Baker, another great book. And then any book by Blair Enns is going to touch on value-based pricing, but his Win Without Pitching manifesto is kind of the intro into all of his values. So he actually just dropped a 4th book maybe a month or 2 ago about the 4th conversation that we have. in the sales process. So those are 3 books, and then 3 podcasts. Two Bob's podcast is David C. Baker and Blair Enns. It's a brilliant podcast. It's a must listen for any agency owner. Jonathan Stark talks about ditching hourly. That's literally all he talks about. The caveat, and I mentioned it earlier, he was the name I was going to drop later, is that he focuses more from a consultancy standpoint versus a larger business standpoint. The principles can be applied, but he's typically coming from the standpoint of a single software developer turned consultant. But again, the principles are beautiful, and the way he frames it is amazing. I've learned a ton from the guy, and he's been a guest on my podcast, which is the third link, Agency Bites. And if you go to my podcast landing page and click on the tags for pricing and scaling, it'll bring up a few conversations where we talk specifically about value-based pricing versus shifting from hourly. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jenny. She's going to wrap things up with a few announcements and any Q&A, because I would love to answer any questions anybody has.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve. I learned so much. Even being a longtime user of value pricing and fixed fee billing, there was a lot of little nuggets and analogies in there. So thank you very much for that. A true testament to what one can actually do with the right information to scale your agency. Really want to make sure that everyone learns from this information. Steve, I love the book Ron Baker, but I'm definitely going to check out these other reads that you've given as well. And of course, podcasts. I'm a great listener to podcasts. Love all the information that we can get here as well. Pricing. It's just that subjective piece, right? What about, I know we kind of touched on it a little bit, but when clients are really urging us to try and find out what that hourly rate is. I get it as well. I get clients as well that even to this day where I'm like, it's going to cost you $1,000 a month to do this. They're like, oh, so like, how many hours would that take? Like, what are some strategies, some language? Maybe we could just like brainstorm together, because I think it's also helpful for individuals to kind of get that dialogue as well.
I think it's super essential to so how we train our clients to behave and interact with us is essential. And that starts from day one, just like all of our relationships, how I want to be treated, how I'm training you to communicate with me. And so when a client's like, well, how long is that going to take? You can come back to, when do you need it done by? So coming back to them with questions that's not focused on the hour, but again, focused on the solution, or what's driving the deadline that you have, so that we can work backwards with milestones. If they continue to persist with, well, how long is that thing going to take, or really nudging into the actual hours of things, you can say, we don't really track time for this, because sometimes we have solutions that work faster, and sometimes we spend more time than we need to. And letting them know that, we might take a loss on that one aspect of the business, but it's okay. We're focused on the big picture solution, on how we're going to get you there, helps kind of reframe the picture for them, that, oh, they're not worried about if they go over. So I think those are a couple of different ways to reframe things.
Yeah, I like that idea. Focus on the tactical work and also technology. I found that helpful as well, where we're emphasizing, the technology that we're leveraging behind it, but also the relationship. Like, we're here because we care. We're here to prioritize your needs. We're here to really own this goal with you and execute this task. Bringing back to the positive. Another thing I tend to do, and maybe I might get called out for this as well, is maybe they've worked with another agency before and it didn't turn out, or they've tried to do it themselves. We all love the DIY people, right? Like, we just love them. It's just amazing, the mess they can get themselves into. But really focusing on what didn't work well in that situation, really pivot back to why they're contacting you, I thought was a really interesting tactic. That they're coming to you for a reason, and come back to that as well. And that's the value. Have the conversation a little bit more on the value of what you're providing as well. Okay, we have one more question here. What are the best ways to open the eyes of prospects who are not sophisticated and view things from a tactical level that typically is more hourly based expect? So that's a little bit more than what we were talking about as well. Opening the eyes. So just maybe some more content, centric on that. um, some ways that we can have some more engaging conversations. Would you say that it's more, coming back to getting away from the numbers, getting away from the hours and focusing more on the pain point in the relationship?
Absolutely. It's always bringing it back to the solution and the benefit that you're providing. And to your point, if they've had experiences before, well, so and so agency always reported their hours. How did that work out for you if you're here now talking to me? Let's try something new. So it is typically what they're used to.
Yeah.
So we want to open their eyes, like to Scott's question, how do we open their eyes to it? Ask them, how did that work out for them? Clearly not great if they're over here now talking to us.
Yeah.
So you don't want to say, we don't talk about hours. You don't want to shut them down. You want to kind of feed into them with some empathy of understanding why is that important to you? We don't necessarily focus on that, but why is that important to you?
Yeah.
And how did it work out for them in the past?
Yeah, and there's no surprises, right? You're not going to surprise them with a big bill. Really centricking back to, we're going to focus on the relationship, we're going to focus on the work, we're going to focus on getting it out the door, and we're not going to surprise you with any additional bills unless there's a scope change, right? Like obviously,
Correct.
if there's a big scope change or a change in services, we all know we're amazing people, and so people love us to solve their problems. We just need to remind them that that's a separate service or a separate engagement or agreement. Lovely.
Yeah.
Well,
And the
thank you.
onus becomes on the service provider of, all right,
Yep.
we've got $5,000. It's on us to get it done within that amount of time and within that budget, and ideally more profitable. And so it's similar to the guy that's going to come and hang a door at your house. You don't ask him like, all right, sure, you want them out of the house so the mess is cleaned up, but if he gets done in an hour, it's because of all the experience that they've got. And so, it's the same kind of concept.
Exactly. And there's value in that, right? Time is just that negative. Um, I it doesn't work out well. It doesn't, you automatically put a ceiling on your value. There's only so many hours in the day. It's boring, you know, collecting hours, tracking hours is completely annoying. So I think we're all pretty much solved. So listen, everybody, follow Steve. I think it's important. There's a lot of information and wealth of knowledge here. Love for you to check out what our solution can do. And listen, we'll meet you where you are at. If you are like, ooh, I haven't quite graduated to value pricing, fixed fee billing, that's okay. We can meet you where you're at. We can help you if you're currently comfortable with the hours. You're going to continue listening to Steve and you're going to change that. And we're also going to help you with the technology beside that as well. So don't be afraid. We're here to help you and meet you where you're at right now with your hourly model, but we're going to push you and help you to scale and grow your agency. Well, thank you, Steve. Really appreciate your time today, wealth of knowledge, and really appreciate everyone here in the audience taking time to soak up this information. Hope you're all going to have a great
Thanks for
day.
having me. Yeah, thanks for
You're
having me. And thanks everybody for joining us.
awesome. Thanks, Steve.